Today we're going to do a short tutorial on how to cut up my EasyPrint objects, the ones that are built for filament printers, and take out just the parts that you want. So we're going to be using the Covenanter right here. We're just going to print the turret. We're not going to print the rest of the body parts. So here's how to do that. The first thing we're going to do is go to File, New, General. It gives us our blank Blender cube. Center mouse button is rotate around. I think for most mice, center mouse button is rotate around. I'm going to go ahead and delete this cube. I select it by left clicking. You can also select it over here. Select it by left clicking, tap delete, and it is gone. Now, before we add in a new file, what I would like to do is go through some of the changes to the UI that I find really useful. One is to go to Edit Preferences, and in Preferences go to Add-ons and then search for Pi, and what that will give you is the Interface 3D View Pi menus. And what that allows you to do is, if you don't have a numpad, it allows you to navigate the camera using some of the keyboard commands that would otherwise be numpad commands. I have like a 80% keyboard or a little smaller, so I don't have a numpad, so I have to turn that on or I just can't navigate at all very well. The other option that I like to turn on is over here in the top right hand corner, Viewport Gizmos. I like to have the move and rotate ones on for what we're doing today, which is taking an existing file and just taking pieces out of it. I would suggest leaving scale off so you don't accidentally scale something out of scale with the rest of the file, but move and rotate are going to be friends for us today, so we'll leave those ones on. If you don't think you're going to need to rotate, you can indeed just turn the rotate one off, just leave the move one on, and you'll be good to go. So I'm going to import one of my files. I'm going to get the Covenanter. Oop. Import STL. Now, it shows the gumball that I just turned on right here, but there's no art. I can see that the Covenanter is in my file up here on the right, but we're not looking at it. So this is where those Pi, this is where those 3D View Pi menus come in handy. So what I'm going to do is tap tilde, which is the one to the left of the 1 key. Tap tilde, you get this lovely pie chart. And what we are going to do is view selected, because we already have our Covenanter selected in that top right menu. And if you just don't touch anything, it will be the thing that's selected after you import it. And then I'm going to hit 3 for view selected, or I can move my mouse to right here, but you can see that number 3 right there. I can just tap 3, so tilde 3 will bring us to our view. Now, our gumball is nowhere near here, so we can right click on this and we can set origin. And what we are going to do is origin to geometry. If we do geometry to origin, it's going to move us below the 0 plane, which is fine because all of the stuff will move together. But just to keep us straight, let's go ahead and move our origin to our geometry. So see, now that has moved the origin, somewhere inside of our art. And I can center, and now we are panning around this. We can see that our 0 point for the whole map is over there. And this is really just an artifact of the way that I design in Rhino. I end up putting things off to the side before I export them, so they get weird, not 0 centers. So here's all of our art for the Covenanter. We have one object up here. I think that this view is kind of ugly. It tries to render it smooth, and for something that is as aggressively mechanical as what we do, this looks very unattractive. If you don't want to rotate around, but you want to pan side to side, just hold shift, and then you can pan like this. Let go of shift, and you can rotate again. And if you ever get lost, right, tilde 3 brings you back. Now, I don't like the way this looks. I think it's kind of ugly. So what we can do up here is go to viewport shading, and instead of, this one's usually the one that's highlighted, the second one. If we click the first one, it gives us our incredibly sweet Tron look. So we're going to use the Tron look one. I think it just looks nicer. And I'm going to zoom in and out using the mouse scroll wheel. We need this in separate parts because what we are going to do today is we are going to pull out just the components that make the turret for the Covenanter. So we're going to pull out this here, which is the main turret section. We're going to pull out this piece here, which is the turret ring and basket that goes down into the rest of the model. We are going to pull out the two storage or stowage boxes that are attached to that, and we're going to put all that together and make a little file that'll print just the turret. So this is great if you're doing like an alt history thing and you need to trim the gun off and have a variant turret, or if you want to do like a Panzerturm style where you have just the turret on a piece of terrain as a bunker or something like that. First step with this, now that we have, we're looking at the right thing, and if we are not looking at the right thing, again, that is tilde3. We're looking at the right thing. We have one object up here. We're now going to go where it says object mode here. We're going to click, go to edit mode, and then what looks like deselected, so we're going to leave that alone. Now we're going to hit the P key. We're not going to click anything. Hit the P key. P as in Paul. P key will give us this little menu here, and we're going to go buy loose parts. So one thing that I do is these look like one big object, but they are not. They're a bunch of separate objects all just resting together. So we can go buy loose parts. Now you can see how many objects it's just made. So that is actually, scroll, 71 total objects. So we're going to get rid of a lot of those. And you might ask why there's 71 objects in here. Well, I'll show you in a minute. So we're going to go back to object mode because we really don't want to edit our meshes. We just want to, move them around and get rid of the ones we don't want. I'm going to click over here to deselect. I'm going to go ahead and just select this track. And again, tilde3 centers me on that track. Now, this track is this. I'm going to tap the delete key. See these objects here? Let's go ahead and highlight them so you can see what I'm talking about. These objects here, shift click to select that one as well. These objects are the little bits of geometry that I add in to make it so it's easier for your printer to print these. So you'll find these all throughout my objects. When you do this kind of breakup, you'll see dozens, if not hundreds, of separate objects that all just handle making it a little bit easier for your printer to print. We don't want any of that, right? Because we're just printing this turret. You might think, oh, well, if I just want the turret, then I'm just going to select the turret, right? I'm going to right click on the turret. I'm going to set origin to geometry, and then I'm going to just move this over to the side and take it. But you can see what's happened is the support material for that turret hasn't gone with it. And so just to be careful, I'm going to Control Z, just to be careful, what we are going to do is leave the parts we want alone and delete out the stuff we don't. So I'm going to delete out all the bits we don't want, and here I can see all the pieces that go into making this stuff support correctly. So I'm going to get rid of all of that. Get rid of this little bit. Oh, and if we have something selected that we don't want to have selected, we can do a Shift Alt click twice, and then it'll go away, and then we can delete. So I don't need this part of the body, delete. These parts of the body, don't need those, delete. Don't need these little extra bits of art. And you can see that our gumball is still down here, or I'm sorry, it's not a gumball, it's called a gizmo in Blender. It's called a gumball in other programs. The gizmo is still down here, and that's just because that's where we set it when we did the move origin to geometry. So we don't need it. We don't need to worry about where it is because we're just deleting these. We're not actually moving them. Okay, so I have deleted everything that I don't want on my page. I have the two pieces, or I have the collection of pieces and the collection of pieces that I do need. This we're not going to mess with. So what I want to do is just grab all of this art, make sure all of these little pieces are selected, which they are. I'm going to right click, and I am going to, oh, interesting. Without a single object selected, you can't set origin. That's really odd. Anyway, origin to geometry. So now I have that origin set. Remember, if I've gotten off with my camera, I can tilde3, but I don't want to do that. So now what we can do is, instead of getting this thing off axis, moving it up and down on accident, we're going to use our gizmo with our move selected. So I can actually turn rotate off, and that even makes the gizmo a little simpler. So I can turn that off, and then I'm just going to move this just to be kind of close to my turret. And the reason that I do that is I just don't want excessive head movement for a filament printer. It wastes time running back and forth. It also can add stringing and things like that. So I'm just going to bring it as close to the turret as I feel is correct and acceptable. I usually like to leave at least a millimeter and a little less than a millimeter, but you can see that this actually cuts under, so I have looks like about 3 millimeters there, so I'm good to go. And we just do not want this close enough that it's going to, you know, print into one big object. So again, I can see that all of these are individual pieces, so if I don't want these little binding strips that hold things together, you can take those out if you want. I would suggest to leave them. And actually, looking at this, I have somehow lost the supports for the machine gun. So I'm going to go hunt down where the supports for the machine gun went. But before I do that, I'm going to show you how to save out this file. All you have to do now is you can select this, File, Export, export to STL or whatever else you want to export to, and then save the file. Make sure you name it something else so you don't overwrite your original, because it will kind of let you do that. I think it turns red and lets you know that you're about to screw up, but it will let you do it. So this is what we have. This is the thing that we want to print. This gives us a smaller print. We don't have to, you know, just put the rest of the body in our bits box. But that is how I would go about using Blender, taking one of my files and just cutting the bits out that I want. And it's really delete everything you don't want first, move the things that you do want together, and then export the file.